What if the life you've been chasing isn't actually the life you want? Here at Lauritzen Gardens in Omaha, everything is planted with intention. A seed is planted, someone nurtures it, and over time, something strong, beautiful, and life-giving begins to grow. And that's what gardens do. That's also what happens when we live intentionally, especially with how we give. But here's the reality. Most of us aren't living with that kind of intention when it comes to generosity. We live in one of the wealthiest, most blessed nations in history, but study after study shows that even among those who follow Jesus, our giving often looks no different than the rest of the world. The average American gives away just 2.1% of their income, and the average Christian in America, just 2.5%. Not much of, if any, discernible difference at all. And that's a problem because Jesus gave everything. And if we say we follow him but don't look like him in how we give, then maybe our hearts aren't as aligned with him as we think. Now, it'd be one thing if keeping more of our money actually made us happier or was resulting in greater lives, but it hasn't. Every mental health statistic I read, even amongst our prosperous nation, is spiraling downward. Maybe what the rapper Notorious B.I.G. once said is true. Mo money, mo problems. To which some of us who are watching feel like we don't have enough money, are like, well, sign me up, let me see if that's true. But bottom line is, we need a relationship change to our money and to our stuff. Why? Well, first, because if we truly desire to follow Jesus in this regard, we've clearly missed the mark. And second, because the way we're currently living collectively isn't working. Now, the beautiful thing about becoming generous is not only will you better reflect Jesus, but your life will grow richer too, and others will notice. And so this giving challenge, it is a 40-day journey about planting something new and something better. It's about letting go of how the world tells us how to act with our money and resources, and instead it's really important where you put your money. In fact, let me tell you a story from my life. I remember the very first stock I ever bought was back in my early 20s. You might say, Zach, I thought you were still in your early 20s. Okay, no one said that, but you didn't have to laugh. That's just mean, come on. Anyway, wanting to be a wise investor, I placed $2,000 into Sirius XM radio stock. I bought each share for around $6 a share. Hardly knew anything, a little bit about the company, but not too much. I'm not sure who gave me the idea that this is the one that I needed to buy, but I did it. I put $2,000 of my hard-earned money into it, hoping to see some great long-term returns. All of a sudden, I was an investor. It felt big, felt like adulting, what grown-ups do. And the moment I had invested that money into Sirius XM radio, I immediately began checking the stock price multiple times a day. I became a subscriber to their services, and not only that, I started reading articles, watching interviews with their CEO, and did my best to analyze earning reports. I couldn't even understand them, but you know what I'm talking about. A week later, I couldn't have cared about Sirius XM radio, but now I felt like a brand ambassador. So in the first week, even in the first few months, the stock went up. And I was so happy. It was growing fast. I mean, I thought I'd hit the jackpot, like a new plant that shoots up overnight. You're just amazed at how quickly it takes off. Maybe this, my very first investment, will be the thing that I hold on to long term that will fund my retirement from my career in ministry that I hadn't even started yet. Those were the dreams. But then, as the weeks, months, and years went on, sadly, I kid you not, that stock may have sprouted with promise, but like a fragile bloom in the wrong soil, it went down, down, and more down. My future retirement fund went down the drain, and as much as I tried to will this thing to change, it just didn't work. Finally, when my life situation changed, I think we needed money for a down payment on an apartment at seminary, so I was forced to get out, and I had to sell the shares for less than 50 cents a share and got just over $100 back. The stock eventually went all the way down to less than a dime a share. And so in more ways than one, I lost some serious money. Get it? Serious XM money? Okay, anyway. My heart was jumping all over the place at this company that I couldn't have cared less about a week before. Now, why is this? Well, it's because where you put your money, your heart follows. This isn't just true for me with a stock. It's true anywhere you put your money. If you belong to a gym, you feel like you have a right to speak into it. If you buy a ticket to a concert or sporting event, you all of a sudden care more about that event than you did before you even bought it. But my stock example brought new meaning to the words that Jesus said that will be our theme verse for the next 40 days from Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. When it comes to generosity, especially in the church, for those of us who call ourselves Christians, I think we oftentimes get this backwards. We often think that our hearts should lead the way. Too often we'll wait until we feel generous to give, but Jesus flips it. He tells us, if you want to care more about something, put your treasure there first. Don't wait for your heart to get all stirred up and then be generous towards a cause, a person, or a ministry. No, give first, and then your heart will follow your dollars. So many who are listening right now, you're listening because you do care about Jesus. You do love him. You are grateful for his generous gift of grace in your life, and you want to follow him, and you want a heart that's more like his, and that's beautiful. But what if the key in gaining a godlike heart is to first give your money towards the things God actually look like? Because if you're feeling the tension, you are not alone. And so this is an invitation to try something new. Rather than chasing the world's ways of money, which just gets you chasing more and more, we're going to try something different. And aren't you ready for that anyway? Come on, be honest. How's the world's way working out for you? Do words like stress, burnout, financial anxiety, and paycheck to paycheck ring true for you? You ever feel like you never have enough? So why not try the generous way, at least for the next 40 days? And if it didn't work for you, like at least you tried something, right? But if it does, and I truly believe it will, it might just change your life. I'm not going to promise you these 40 days are going to be easy. So let me tell you where we're going. For the next 40 days, we're going to follow the most generous person who's ever lived, Jesus. Thankfully, we don't just have his teachings, we have his example. He talked about giving a lot, and he lived it all the way to the cross. So you're going to be invited to not just learn from Jesus, but to practice the way of Jesus, because it'd be a real miss if all we did is learn from him and about him, but not actually do what he said. In fact, at the end of the most influential talk ever given by Jesus, the most influential man who's ever lived, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says these words: "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." Jesus says, if you know what he says, but don't actually put it into practice, that you are foolish. Is that too strong? Because actually the Greek word for foolish is moro, which of course is where we get the word moron from. So you could say in a sense that this is a challenge to not be a moron with your money. I love using the words of Jesus. So during the course of this 40-day challenge, you're going to be challenged to give 5 gifts. Now, 4 of them are going to be one-time gifts, and 1 of them is going to be a regular or recurring gift. Now, don't worry, I'm never going to tell you or challenge you to give a specific amount, because really that's between you and God at the end of the day. And the reality is that a sacrifice for one person may not be a sacrifice for another person. And again, underneath all of that, being generous isn't about checking a box. It's a way that you respond to God's goodness in your life. Together, We'll learn how to ask God about what it looks like to be generous and listening to Him, and finally responding with obedience. So to help you remember the heart of this challenge, we're using that word heart as an acronym for the 5 types of generosity Jesus encourages us to practice: giving happily, giving eternally, giving abundantly, giving regularly, and giving today. In each of these types of generosity, you're going to be invited to trade away a world's idea of money or finances for the truth of what God is offering to you. But more on that later. If we plant these seeds of generosity now, we won't just see a harvest in the future. We'll see transformation in our hearts and our homes now. Generosity makes a difference today and eternally. And this is about more than giving. It's about